Hi, here in this question we are given that in a 10-kilometer race, A, B and C each run at a uniform speed and they get gold, silver and bronze respectively. So this means that A is the fastest, B is the second fastest and C is the slowest person. If A beats B by 1 kilometers and B beats C by 1 kilometers, then by how many meters does A beat C by? Okay. So there are two ways of doing this question. Let's first use the longer method wherein we'll be using equations to solve this, and then we'll be looking at the slightly shortcut method. So we are given that A beats B by 1 kilometers. So all three of them start at the same time, right? So by the time A reaches here, B is somewhere behind. How far is B? B is 1 kilometers behind. So we can say that the ratio of speeds of A and B will be same as the ratio of their distances travelled. Both start at the same time and they reach at their respective points at the same time. Since time taken is same, ratio of their speeds will be same as ratio of their distances travelled. So distance travelled by A is 10 kilometers and the distance travelled by B is 9 kilometers. So ratio of speeds of A and B are 10:9. Similarly, if you look at B and C now, both B and C start the race at the same time and B beats C by 1 kilometer. So by the time B reaches finish line, C is 1 kilometers behind him. So again, both of them start at the same time and reach their respective destinations or these points at the same time. So ratio of their speeds is going to be same as the ratio of their distances travelled. B travels 10 kilometers whereas C travels 10 minus 1, 9 kilometers. Okay, and now we have to figure out between A and C. A beats C by how many meters? Obviously A is faster, we know that because A gets gold. So if both A and C start at the same time, by the time A reaches the finish line, C will be how far behind is what we need to calculate. Okay, so let's see. We know the ratio of speeds of A and C will be same as ratio of their distances travelled, right? So distance travelled by A is 10 kilometers. We don't know what is the distance travelled by C. Let's say this is the distance travelled by C, right? Now to calculate distance travelled by C, we first need what is the ratio of their speeds A and C. Can we calculate the ratio of their speeds? Yes. Let's multiply these two together, right? So if you multiply the left hand sides will be A by B into B by C, which will be equal to product of the right hand sides, which will be 10 by 9 into 10 by 9. So we have B cancels out, we have A by C is equal to 10 into 10, 100 by 81. So ratio of speeds of A and C is 100 by 81, and now equating A by C with 100 by 81, so we have distance travelled by C comes out to be 10 factor cancels out, 81 by 10. 81 by 10 is 8.1 kilometers. So distance travelled by C is 8.1 kilometers. Hence, this means that A beats C by how many meters? 10 minus this part 8.1, which is 1.9 kilometers. Distance travelled, or A beats C by 1.9 kilometers, but we have to give the answer in meters. So 1.9 kilometers is same as 1900 meters. So the answer to this question is 1900 meters. Okay. Now let us look at the slightly shorter or shortcut method to solve the same question. Let's start with the same thing. We are given that A beats B by 1 kilometer. So they both start at the same time. By the time A reaches here, B is going to be 1 kilometers behind. Okay, fine. And also we are given that between B and C, both of them start at the same time. By the time B reaches here, C is going to be again 1 kilometers behind. So if B travels, now let's focus on the part, if B travels 10 kilometers, the distance between B and C increases by 1 kilometer, right? Initially the distance is 0, By the time B travels 10 kilometers, distance between them increases to 1 kilometers. Hence, for every 1 kilometer that B travels, the distance between them will increase by 0.1 kilometers, dividing both of them by 10. Right? Distance between B and C will be directly proportional to the distance that B travels. Right? So, using this logic, initially all A, B, C are starting at the same time. Initially the distance between B and C is 0. Now by the time B travels 9 kilometers, what is the distance between B and C going to be? For 1 kilometer the distance becomes 0.1 kilometers. So for 9 kilometers the distance will become 0.9 kilometers. Right? So C will be, when B reaches here, C will be 0.9 kilometers behind B. So if C is 0.9 kilometers behind B, how far from A will he be? So the distance between A and C will be 1 plus 0.9, which is 1.9 kilometers. This whole distance is going to be 1.9 kilometers. And 1.9 kilometers is effectively 1900 meters. So the answer is 1900 meters. Thank you.